I went up in the loft space recently and noticed a bit of an odd smell. Now, our loft space is made up of two pitched roofs. The first is where the camera is at the moment, and the second is behind me. So next I went back here, and that's where I saw this. Hundreds, if not thousands of the things. And then when I looked up, I saw this. This pitched roof up here, by the way, is the one that Robin Clevitt built. So perhaps it's no wonder that they are swarming around it like flies. But hopefully later in the video, they'll be dropping like flies. When dealing with an infestation, it's important to do plenty of research to figure out the best course of action, and I've already done that research, so in this video I'll tell you everything that I think you need to know in order to tackle this problem. Cluster flies are usually found in rural areas, as these flies tend to breed in fields during the summer, and then they seek warm, dry, quiet places to hibernate from the autumn onwards, like garages and lofts. The trouble is, once they've found a warm, dry, quiet place, chances are their descendants will return to it year after year, because that smell I mentioned at the start of the video, which is excreted by the flies, contains a pheromone which attracts them back. And the best way to prevent that happening is to basically kill them before they leave that scent marker. But for our situation, we've probably caught this too late because we didn't notice them soon enough, as it's not often we come up into the loft. Cluster flies have no direct health effects to humans or pets. They lay their eggs in soil. They don't lay their eggs in food or anything disgusting like that, like other species of flies do. But they are still a nuisance. Not only is it not very pleasant having loads of slow flying insects around you, but also when flies die, they are likely to attract rodents or other insects to eat their bodies. And we had rodents living in the loft when we first moved into this bungalow 5 years ago, by the way, so we really don't want to have that problem again. Fortunately, none of the cluster flies have been able to get into the bungalow itself. I guess because there's really no way for them to get down there. The loft hatch is well sealed. This vent, which serves our PIV system, is sealed off too, because the PIV has filters on it, which they wouldn't be able to get through. And this vent in our bathroom is for an inline extractor, which is ducted out through the roof. But if they were to find their way into the bungalow, chances are they'd all be clustering together around the windows, as that's what they do apparently, because they are attracted to light. Now, when you look up how to deal with a cluster fly infestation, one of the main pieces of advice you will receive, which I strongly disagree with, is that you need to seal up all openings around the roof and around the eaves of the building to prevent them getting in. And you don't need to be a construction mastermind to know that that is terrible advice, because roof spaces need to be well ventilated. Good airflow and circulation helps to remove moisture from the air, preventing any potential issues with condensation, and that applies even if you have a breathable membrane under your roof tiles like we do here. As while breathable membrane does allow water vapour from the home to escape, it's not a good substitute for ventilation. There are a few situations where roof spaces can be sealed, like for example properties that have an MVHR system installed that may replace natural ventilation, but for the vast majority of homes, sealing up gaps is not a good idea. Besides, apparently, cluster flies can fit through gaps of 3 to 5 millimeters, so the chance of you being able to close up every gap that small on a roof are pretty unlikely in my opinion. I'm sure they could even probably get in underneath roof tiles if they wanted to. If you can identify how the cluster flies are getting into the property, then it might be an idea to add some kind of insect mesh to prevent them getting in while still allowing airflow. But yeah, I would strongly recommend that you ignore any advice saying to seal up all openings, because then you're just going to create more problems for yourself. So what is the best way to deal with a cluster fly infestation? You could call a professional pest control company who will have their own methods for dealing with infestations like this, but bearing in mind that these flies are likely to come back year after year, I'd rather not be getting professionals back on a regular basis, because that's likely to get expensive. I'd rather try to tackle the problem myself. As flies are attracted to light, you could get one of those fluorescent light things that attract flies and zap them dead, which is probably the most humane way of getting the job done, and all the dead bodies will be in one place too. But leaving something like that up in the loft where it's out of sight and out of mind doesn't really sit well with me, since it could pose a fire risk. Plus, to deal with what could be quite a vast amount of flies, you'd need a pretty big unit too, and those would be expensive. There are also insect and fly sprays, which I'm sure would do the job. Then there are smoke bombs, which is the solution that I've opted for. The beauty of these is that the smoke will reach into all of the nooks and crannies in the roof space and hopefully kill all of them. Smoke of any kind is obviously not something you want to be breathing in though, so you should definitely avoid the fumes from these and follow the instructions closely. But 4 of these smoke bombs was around £15 on Amazon, so they're not too expensive. I'll leave links to these in the description box below, by the way. Because our loft space consists of 2 pitched roofs joined together, I'm going to use 2 of these bombs initially, 1 for each area. These bombs need to be lit on a heat resistant surface, so I'm going to be using an oven tray, and I'm going to place it below the peak of my roof. and place the bomb right in the center of the tray. Before I light this one though, I'm going to set up the one back there. And that's the one I'm going to light first because it's the furthest from the point of exit. I'm also going to be putting on my respirator, which has charcoal filters installed, so this should protect me from any fumes. I'm using a lighter to ignite the smoke bomb, and in this footage you'll see it created smoke for a total of 52 seconds and then completely stopped. While that was going, I went and lit the other bomb, which smoked for 50 seconds and then completely stopped. Now, I've never used these things before and I didn't really know what to expect, but when I looked on the Amazon listing, I saw this video review, and clearly the results that this person had are very different to mine, as there's actually a flame there and I didn't get a flame at all. I also found lots of negative reviews complaining that the bombs only smoked for a few seconds. I tried to reignite them, this time using a blowtorch, but that just seemed to set alight to the plastic, which is obviously not good. It did create some more smoke though for another 1.5 minutes, but I don't actually know how long these things are supposed to put out smoke for. If you look at the loft hatch and the floor, you'll see flies congregating there, I expect because they're trying to escape the smoke. Later on, I found this review from someone who had spoken to technical support and been told that even though only a small amount of smoke was produced, if you leave them alone in the room to carry on creating fumes, they will do the job. But because I wasn't confident that they had worked well enough, and I just wanted to get this problem solved, I decided to light the remaining 2 bombs, this time with the blowtorch, to see if it would have better results. Oh, by the way, just listen to my reaction when I open the loft hatch.
Oh my god.
I'll show you the aftermath of that shortly. Anyway, lighting these bombs with a bigger flame from a blowtorch seemed to work much better. I sealed up the loft hatch again, and now to deal with the aftermath. I couldn't believe how many dead flies there were falling through the loft hatch after such a small amount of time. There were also a few live ones which managed to escape, and for some reason they all headed to the same windowsill. At this point I also went and had a look around the outside of the property to see if I could figure out where the flies were coming in, as presumably some of them would now be trying to escape. I had assumed it'd either be through the soffit vents, but there were no signs of any flies there at all. Or perhaps underneath the tiles at the bottom, where these comb fillers are, which are designed to stop birds and other creatures getting in, but no signs of any flies there either. Strangely though, right at the very top of this pitched roof, I could see quite a lot of flies there. So the only theory that I have is that these flies are coming in under the roof tiles and then navigating their way through the sags in the membrane to get into the loft. Back in the house, I decided to seal up the loft hatch with some masking tape, as not only could I smell the smoke bombs, but also the readings on my air quality monitor, which I had brought into the house just out of curiosity, were very high. So I opened up a few windows to get some fresh air through the property, continued to wear my respirator until the levels dropped, and put the cats outside in the catio. It was only later that I realised that I hadn't switched off our PIV system, which was happily continuing to gently pump some of that smoky air down into the house. So that was very stupid of me. Right, this is a job that I've been putting off for a couple of days. Really not looking forward to this. Not as many to clear up from the loft hatch this time, but up in the loft it was a different story. Now, in all honesty, there's no way I'm ever going to be able to clear up every single fly, but I did spend a couple of hours trying to get as many as I could. Interestingly, none of them were towards the eaves of the roof space. All of them were kind of central to the pitched roof areas, and I have no idea why, but certainly it made the cleanup operation a bit easier. However, there were still loads and loads of flies sitting on top of the insulation, and they were really tricky to suck up without continually blocking the vacuum nozzle. So this wasn't a fun afternoon. Oh, the glamorous lifestyle of a YouTuber. I'm happy to say though that in the hours I spent up in the loft cleaning up, I didn't see a single live fly. So those smoke bombs clearly work really well, even though I had my concerns around how long they are supposed to smoke for. But my advice would be, if you want to try them, to ignite them with a big flame. Will the flies come back next year? Who knows, but I'm going to be keeping a close eye on this come summer 2025. To see if I can work out where these flies are getting in and hopefully figure out a way to stop them. Thank you for watching.